Management Council meeting to order. We do have a full council here today, so we have a quorum. We will move on to see if there's any public input from anyone today on any items. Not seeing any. All right, then we'll move on to item 3. That's approval of our minutes dated December 21. You have those in front of you, and they were provided in advance as well. If there's no changes there, I need to approve the agenda. Sorry, thank you. Dean, keeping me in line.
No problem.
I do need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Karski, seconded by Benninga. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we can move on to item 3. Minutes from December 21. Any changes that you guys saw to those, or we'll take a motion?
Move approval, Sale.
Second call.
All right, motion by Sale, seconded by Cole to approve the minutes from December 21. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, before we move on to item 4, I just want to make a couple quick remarks because it will affect this next item and our director's report as well. Over the past month, I did accept the resignation of our director, Scott McMahon. That was on March 15 that happened, middle of the month. So we have been operating in kind of an interim format since that time, and we'll be talking more about that throughout this meeting. So part of what we need to do today is officially designate Mike Gramlich as our interim director. But just for those in the audience, I just want you to know that when we did have a change and Director McMahon did resign, all of the Metro Management Council members were aware. This isn't the first time they're hearing that. We've been communicating throughout the month on that. We just have to formalize that in the meeting, accepting that resignation and appointing Mike as the interim director. So that is item 4. 4 is the approval of Resolution 23-01, interim director appointment. The resolution's in front of you. It's also on the screen. How we got to this point, when Scott resigned, there's not a huge pool of people who could step in to be an interim while we figure out what our next director hire will look like. But I reached out to Chief Matt McAravey at Sioux Falls Fire Rescue because we kind of unanimously, a group of us, thought Division Chief Mike Gramlich would be good for something like this. Mike has a lot of experience with leadership in fire, leadership on our union. He is currently division chief over anything kind of people, culture, communications related right now for Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, which is a great skill set that we need in Metro at this time as well. So Mike raised his hand and said, hey, I'm willing to help out. So Mike, we'll hear from you in a minute, but Mike will be appointed as the interim director, and you'll see it says effective March 15. It doesn't say through when. And we'll have to talk about that. So it'll be sometime before 2080, right, Mike? But I say that in jest because we don't know. We'll talk more about the hiring process, the posting process, maybe some other logistical things we'll have to work through before our next director is brought on board. So Mike is on loan to us for the near future as the interim director. So take any questions or discussion on the council on that before we take a vote on that appointment of him as our interim.
I'd move approval.
Second.
All right, a motion by Karski, seconded by Benninga to approve that appointment. Any discussion there? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. With that, we'll hear from the 2-week interim director, Mike. Come on up, man. Afternoon, sir. Good. Yeah.
Try to put something together just so I have some thoughts to work off of. So first and foremost, thank you, obviously.
Turn on the mics.
See, these are all.
Yeah.
How about now? That's working? Okay.
Is that working? We're good? All right. We're good.
They have
The
somebody
voice in
back
the
there
corner.
like-
Yeah. I didn't know who was, if that was the voice of God or what was yelling at us. I'm like, oh, there's someone back there.
There's a way they could follow me around in my daily life. That I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So again, thanks. As you said, it was fortunate that we were able to raise our hand for this type of an assignment. It was very difficult to know what we were going to step into. I just didn't have a lot of experience with Metro. I can very confidently say that after 2 weeks, it's easy to care about them. Very, very easy. So quick 2-week update, Metro from us. I'm going to use a format that's familiar for me, so hopefully you can oblige me on that. In the fire service, we use a CAN report. It's meant to be succinct, give you an idea of what's going on, what are we doing, and what do we need. So I'm going to put this in that format, and hopefully it's helpful for you to understand what I've seen in the 2 weeks that I've been at Metro so far. First and foremost, a condition is operational readiness. It seemed very obvious to me that as we moved in, we wanted to make sure that we were able to do the mission that the men and women of Metro are designed to do, expected to do. So far in the 2 weeks that we've been there, we've had a full evaluation of our IT functions completed with the help of our partners at City IT. Have an idea of what we need to do, where our opportunities and strengths. We'll be moving forward with plans for that. We have an update of our continuity of operations plan. That's the document that helps us understand what's going to happen if we have any operational challenges, a loss of people, a loss of facility, whatever it can be. Again, through the help of Sandy Frentz through Fire Rescue and the Emergency Management Office, we'll be getting that updated first away right off in April. Lastly, for that, we have some support needed for the transition to the PSC. You can imagine for the team at Metro, this is going to be one of the most impactful moves they've had in their history. Again, fortunately enough, we have some resources. We have Erin Boffenkamp, the program manager. She's going to help us, project manager. I apologize. She's helping us work through and make sure we have all those things ready for the transition. So feeling confident at that point, we have the things that we need. We'll keep looking over the next couple weeks to see what else we haven't been able to look at yet. Needs, pretty straightforward, continued access and support from the services. I don't think that could have gone better in these first 2 weeks. I've been able to work with just about every department, both county and city. We've gotten the help we've need, and we've gotten it quick. So I'm pretty pleased to see that. Any questions on that part?
Questions? No?
Okay.
Go ahead.
The next one obviously had to come forward is staffing. These are one of the main issues that obviously have been being dealt with over the last few years. So in 2 weeks, pretty hard to jump on top of that, but we did make some progress. So right now we're evaluating most of the systems, hiring, all that sort of thing. I'll be giving you updates on those as I move forward. One of the things that's fairly exciting, we dusted off an old idea, which is common in public safety. Maybe fished it out of the garbage can and recycled it for more than it's worth. Once upon a time, firefighters and some cops were able to build resilience in our staffing model down at Metro. We're trying that again. We had a unique opportunity with a firefighter, just some life events that occurred. We were able to pull them over. They started Monday, as a matter of fact. And we're going to run them through the full training process to test our theory. Can firefighters be capable of backup in the event that we have a catastrophic need at Metro? Long term, if we are able to prove that this is successful, we'll figure out how to operationalize a plan that gives us more numbers and more capacity. But it's been pretty exciting. Again, when I talk about the services and action-oriented maneuvers that we had within the city, it was a 2-day process. We asked a question, we had an idea, and Monday he started, and it's been great so far. The training team, our friends over here, everybody has just been welcoming. Deputy Director Chase put together a program and even named it Pat within an hour of the first conversation we had, and partner agency training now will live on. So it's pretty exciting for us to see that. You'll see updates as we move on that as well. Lastly, we just had an opportunity of convenience, honestly, recruitment partnerships. Metro has always been public safety, and it's helpful to consider it that way and to figure out what resources we can leverage as a team. The City of Sioux Falls is putting on a public safety showcase. We've had success in this. We're targeting specifically public safety-minded individuals for employment. The Metro team will be jumping in on that. We'll be utilizing those resources and leveraging that opportunity as well. So I'm pretty excited for that. That comes up in April. So those are the first 2 weeks. Same needs, continued access, and support from services. And that's where we are there. Any questions? I'm going to try some KPIs for you. I don't know how this has been done in the past. I'll look back as best I can, but I'm probably suited to look forward. I want to give you some ideas of things that are going to take my attention. So first and foremost is a retention rate. Anna has provided me with a wealth of data. It's really helpful to have an outside eye come in and look. and all of you with your experience, these numbers should catch your eye. So for starters, the retention rate at Metro, a cumulative average since 2004 sits at 24%. And I'm not talking about an attrition rate, I'm talking about a retention rate. So in general, we lose 3 out of 4 employees over the course of time. Our biggest problem is between 1 and 5 years. It starts to taper off. It looks like at that 5-year mark, we've got them. They understand the mission. They stick around and become some of our most amazing employees, right? But a 3 out of 4 loss is pretty hard to overcome. You'll see it connected to the next KPI for applicants processed. This is for 2022. Anna and the team processed 415 applicants in 2022, and we're on track to break 423. For reference, Fire Rescue has nearly 4 times as many employees, and we process about half of that. So this is a consistent challenge. It is a workload challenge. It takes our eye off the ball on the things like leadership and development of our leaders within the organization. These are big challenges that we will face. I'm giving you these KPIs so you can watch them over the coming months, and we'll talk about the things that I think we can do to impact them. The last one is availability, because it's important. It's a very complex measure, and I don't mean to say that to obfuscate. I really do mean I come from fire, so if I say something's complicated, I believe that should mean something. We have a very complex system. These folks are operating at a level that I haven't seen. They're doing more with less than any organization I've ever seen, and for longer than I've ever seen. This availability currently is quite good comparatively to history. Currently, of the minimum staffing that they require, they have about 75% available to fill that staffing. So by definition, 25% of the time, people are having to work extra to get there. That number vacillates as low as below 50%. And in a perfect world, we'll try to find our way closer to 100. These are difficult KPIs to address. Just want to make sure that you see what I see. Over the coming months, what I would appreciate is if there is information you'd like to see, if you'd like me to present it differently, if you'd like me to explain it in a different way, that's the partnership we'll have together, and I'm happy to do it. I like working through those types of processes. Is that helpful?
Can we ask a couple questions on that? I know I have a couple before we
Please.
move on, and maybe Anna, you're maybe better to ask him than or answer him than Mr. 2 weeks here. He seems to have a pretty good handle on it after 2 weeks. But first off, the retention rate is the lowest of any industry I've ever seen. Fast food has a higher retention rate than that, so that should absolutely be making us sit up and take notice as a huge, huge problem. Secondly, though, 415 applicants processed. Of those, how many actually got offers or made it into a training program?
So the people who made it on our eligibility list last year, when I reviewed these with Carrie Deaver and Bill O'Toole, was about a 9%.
About 9%? Okay. So about 40. And of those 40-ish, how many of them actually became employed by Metro last year?
I would be guessing without looking, but I'm going to say about 75% of that.
Okay. Okay.
Because some people change their mind once they reevaluate
Okay.
what's needed to do this job and the shift work and, the commitment. It sounds really exciting, the benefits and stability of a government job, and we have strong benefits from applicant perspectives. They talk about that quite often. But then when they go home and they talk about what the shift work is going to be like, and they're going to miss nights, weekends, holidays, they might be working overnights or evenings for the first several years, then the family starts really thinking about it, and it's a tough decision.
Sure. And from a workflow standpoint, 415 applicants, you are the entrance point. You process all those yourself.
Not myself. We have an amazing team. We utilize 2 retired supervisors who come back and work very limited hours, a couple days, average of a day to 2 days a week between the 2 of them or each. And then Roxanne, our part-time business support specialist, we could not have gotten through 2022 and that number of applicants without that position. They do an amazing job in moving these people through.
So that number, which is huge, and we're still at 75% of our available staffing minimums. So there's a massive something happening there.
But what was helpful is and I will say, the fact that we moved to a continuous posting and the fact that I had the support of the operational team to do that is what allowed us to hire 24 operators last year when we lost 22. There is no way we could have moved that quickly without this solid team, without the continuous posting that allowed us to move quickly and keep people flowing, without the resiliency and the flexibility of the interview team, the people who serve on the virtual presentation so they understand what they're getting into. I mean, it really took a great team to do that. If we were posting just 30 days here, 30 days there, the response time would be much slower, as you can imagine.
So last question, and I'll let anyone else talk here. So do we, knowing we have a 24% retention rate, do we overhire?
If we could get there, yes. That is a tough pill to swallow for new directors because of the gravity of potentially overhiring and having that responsibility. But every director I've worked with, once they've been here a year or two and they realize how important it is. But I really think overhires are key to staying ahead of so that you can be immediately responsive to something that is a trend you see nationwide in this career field. Mike recognized it immediately.
Yeah.
He understood it.
We do something similar at Fire. So we understand what that's like when you bring people in and then you have a multi-week, multi-month training process. There's this long delay between when you can bring somebody in and when they can provide operational value to your organization. So it was a similar process for us. So it was easy for me to understand what she was asking for.
Other questions on these numbers?
So did I hear this right, that in 2022 you hired 24 and lost 22?
So if you want some, because it's fun for me, I'm the 2-week guy. There's a graph that lays it out per year. Okay, there are multiple years where every single person that was hired in that year is no longer there. Zeros. That's not a thing that we encounter. Me.
Commissioner.
Is there a point in the hiring process that the 90% that drop out or something similar to that number that we can identify at that point
Clarify.
when they drop out and how much time we've already spent to get to that point? Because it seems like not only is that significant and frankly disappointing, but is there a way to change the process to make it a little quicker or find better?
I think that's a reasonable question. I think the likely answer is several things, if not a dozen things. To simplify, roughly 40% we lose in that first year, and then about 30% come in that next 1 to 5. Then you'll just see some little bits as they roll through. Typically, again, once they hit 6 years, they're locked in, they've bought into the culture, they've probably moved and changed their lifestyle, all those sorts of things. But that first year is critical, and then even that 1 to 5 year mark is also very critical. So as we look, we do have some guidance. The world struggles with retention, so there's places for us to look. I wouldn't want to give the belief that there's a silver bullet. Right. That's just not realistic. We talk about it at Fire as well. Do we break people? Do we hire them broken? We're not sure what we do, right? There's a lot of things that go on, especially in public safety, because you have this added concern of shift work and all of the things that come with it. I do believe that as we start paying attention to the key indicators, and they always have, right? We can start, instead of pulling 82 levers and not knowing what has impact, we'll start making educated guesses on what we're going to intervene on and see if we have impact. And then we'll just roll from there. And a lot of it will just be figuring out how to build capacity. And I really mean from bottom to top. Figure out from a process perspective, where can we have savings of time? And then the big thing is to reinvest that time that we find into more of that same effort. Then long term, we can start to get ahead. This is a colloquialism I'm using, but it clearly looks like a death from 1,000 paper cuts. We'll put a Band-Aid at a time on each of them until we can get enough around it, and then we start doing real thing. there might be a tourniquet here and there. I'm not sure, but we'll figure it out.
No. Thank you for your answer.
Yeah, thanks for the question, sir.
I guess I'd like to maybe dig a little bit deeper into the weeds on the ones that are gone, or the ones that leave. Do people perceive this job as a gateway to other jobs in law enforcement or becoming a fireman and that type of thing? I mean, are we losing them to other within our own groups?
Let us have two perspectives, so we'll let them go first, and then I'll explain from fire.
I'll actually give three perspectives. I'll open with a comment that just in the past 6 to 8 months, Carrie Deaver and Bill O'Toole asked them to start doing exit interviews with them in order to try to get a better handle on sometimes what people say when they're leaving and why they're really leaving don't always match up. So it's hard to get that. People say, "Oh, I found a better opportunity." Was it the opportunity, or is it something broken at our place that drove you to seek another opportunity? Right. So
Specifically to other public safety agencies, we do lose some. Not a significant number, but we do lose some. And actually, Carrie Deaver and I had a conversation about that some time ago, that if you look at the county's media that they use even for hiring at corrections, I think we rarely take employees from Metro to corrections or corrections to Metro. It does happen, but more often we're going to see our positions as a launching pad to fire or PD. Is it a significant number of the people we lose? No, but that's generally the direction it's going to go if they're looking to get into law enforcement or fire. This is a great starting point.
Okay, thank you.
My anecdotal statement would just be in support. We have 230 people at Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. I know of one person who came from Metro at any given time. So it's not a significant number that we see make that crossover. It might be one of the things that encourages them to apply. And then our goal really should just be to work as a public safety family to keep them within the family.
other questions on this slide? Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Want to just let you know where our next steps are. I'm aware that the budget is immediate. The 2-week guy has to pay attention to that as well. Contract negotiations will be opening in April. That's a thing that I'm looking forward to. It's a thing that I actually enjoy. I really do, Maddie and Lenore. And then facility move, midsummer through fall for 2023. And again, that's going to be getting a lot of support because that is a big calculated dance. That's an extraordinary move that has a lot of moving parts. So we'll be relying on some friends and some partners to make sure that we make that move as seamlessly as possible. And then I just really want to know if there's a way that I can help you.
No, I think on that last bullet there about the facility move, I mean, that's coming up on us. If we kept this meeting structure, which if you look at the bottom, we only have one meeting. We're supposed to only have one meeting between now and when we move, which I'm going to propose at the end of the meeting that we add a couple meetings this year based on everything going on. But the second thing is the IT piece of that move is so critical. And there's a lot of work being done by Matt Tooley right now. And we're also trying to figure out if there's city and county assistance that has to come into play with setting up the new facility and also making sure that we have the redundancy, the backup center, ready as well in the existing space. So there's a lot of moving parts around the move, but the IT piece is a pretty big piece of it. Any other thoughts or questions for Mike? Okay, Mike, thanks, man. Great stuff.
One last parting thought.
Yeah.
Just because I heard 2080,
Yeah.
I hear that.
Yeah, that's right.
I love my job at Fire. I also am currently very much loving the assignment I have.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We'll stick around until they don't need me anymore. That's the idea. So please help me with that.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. All right. We'll move on then to item 6. And Anna's going to take the next several items here. The first one is item 6, approval of resolution 23-02, bank signatures.
All right, when we have a new director, we need to take care of documentation so that we can inform our banking institution regarding access and signatures for ACH's payroll and for check signing. And so the resolution that I have for you here today, and I've already been in touch with our banks, so they're ready for us to submit these at 9 a.m. tomorrow, is the timeline we have in planned. But this is a resolution that you adopt, and you can see that this is an amendment to the previous resolution, and we're replacing Scott McMahon based on his resignation with Mike Gramlich, promoted to the position of interim director. So,
All right.
Move to approve.
Second, Sale.
All right, motion by Karski, seconded by Sale. Any discussion on that one? I only have one question. How long have you worked for Metro?
15 years.
And how many directors have you worked with during that time?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think 6 maybe. Does that
6.
sound about right? Michelle, can I count Michelle multiple times?
You can only count her once, but yeah,
Yeah,
6.
yeah.
And I think that's just an important point for us as we move forward. We also have to figure out why that's, people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses, and we have to figure that out as a council too, why we're having that level of
It'd actually
turnover.
be 7 with Mike.
Yeah,
He's lucky number 7.
yeah. All right. All right, let's vote on the resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Item 7 is presentation of the draft financials for year end 2022 and pending our audit review on this.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So you have a balance sheet. We'll start with the balance sheet, followed by the budget to prior year summary, and then the budget to year-end details. On our balance sheet, again, this is pending auditor review. So we're close to finishing our audit, working with the city on that. You'll notice that financially, we're in a good situation again with cash. You'll see some adjusted entries. I'll point out that there's $663,000 in CIP. That is on line 9, and that is our firing up for purchases for the new building. And if you recall, in December, you authorized us to purchase some equipment and some things ahead of time in order to take advantage of good costs, pricing, and then also as things are getting delivered, we're taking care of those. And so that's reflective there. I'll move on to our prior year summary, the current year, prior year comparison. You're going to notice right here that 911 surcharges have done very well this year. And we talked about that in some of our earlier meetings, that we were seeing an uptick in surcharges, and I was hopeful that through the end of the year, it would remain strong. And as you can see, it's quite an increase over the prior year. It's over $100,000 increase from 2021 to 2022. So that's great news. We continue to watch that to make sure it's not just something unusual. It's not something we have control over, but we do monitor both the calls and then the revenues. You'll also see under other revenue, and there's some included in there is the contribution of revenue that is reflective of the assets that we purchased. So those assets that we purchased in December, we're reflecting the contribution of revenue that will come either from the State 911 Coordination Board or from the city-county support as part of the new project move. You can see that we fell, our personnel services grew from 2021 to 2022, and you see some similar things in expenses, and that's just logical based on just yearly increases, number of staff we added, that type of thing. Any questions? Go ahead, Drew.
If I may, Mayor,
Go ahead.
on the balance sheet, do you have a specific reason why accounts payable is so much higher than what it's been in prior years? I know you have more cash, but you also have more accounts payable.
Thank you. I probably moved too quickly. Yes, that is reflective of those assets. So we received quite a bit of Motorola equipment assets for the Motorola radio system. That entire project will be about 1.5 million just for that radio system in the new center. And we had over 663,000, which is the CIP you see on line 9. And so when you record that from an accounting perspective, you also record that as an accounts payable.
Right. Thank you.
Great question.
Other questions before Anna keeps going? Okay.
So I'll move on to the budget and year-to-date expenses through December. And again, this is pending auditor review. We do have some, just some adjusting entries that Cody Papke, Chief Accountant for the city, and I are working through for some new audit requirements. They're not significant dollar amounts, but those aren't entered in here yet. It's about $7,000, so we're pretty close. You'll see there that we exceeded our budget by $100,000 in surcharges, and that's a good thing. We had hoped that that would remain strong, and it did. Again, I'm going to point out a couple things. You can see the other revenues on line 11, which is the contribution of revenue that we just talked about, and that's reflective of the assets we purchased that are either going to be reimbursed through the state of South Dakota under the 911 Coordination Fund or from the city or county under the support for FF&E of the new building. Payroll, as you expected and as we discussed in December, we're under on payroll. We had a lot of vacancies, and overtime is much higher than normal, but actual wages are much lower. And we fared very well this year on our health insurance. Our rates had a minimal increase, and that helped us budget-wise too. Under operating, we did well there too. I will point out that there are expenses under computer hardware under 5,000, which is line 33. And those are some of those expenses that we told you we were going to purchase: monitors, some KVM switches, switches for our computers, that type of thing. And those were that was the authority you gave us to spend up to $215,000. And so those are reflected in there, and then the contribution of revenue is reflected up above. Capital outlay would have been $663,000, but as an adjusting entry towards audit, we've already moved that to furnishings and equipment on the balance sheet. So that's why it shows 0 here on line 43.
On line 15, how are we
Yes.
tracking? I know we're only through Q1 here. How are we tracking on overtime for this year? Is it going to exceed, if we kept on this path, would it exceed last year?
It would. It's very similar right now, and Amy tracks the actual hours a little closer than I do, but January and February were strong. Lenora and Maddie could tell you the same thing. But we hired staff. A class started February 27th. We're working towards a class on May 8th. And so we're trying, again, with the continuous posting, we're able to respond pretty quickly. And Amy has worked really hard at identifying ways to get our training completed in such a way that we can move people through and get them on the team as soon as
Sure.
possible.
Yeah, and obviously it balances out with salaries being lower. And how is, and I'm kind of looking at Maddie and Lenora, like, how's the team doing with that much overtime? Like, would you be willing to come speak to that and just tell us the vibe? Like, are people appreciative of the overtime? Are they burnt out on the amount of overtime? Because I know there's when you talk about the 75% staffing level that Mike pointed out, and then that level of overtime, is it a point where overtime isn't really a benefit anymore?
I would say that we have a wide family. There are people that are on my spectrum that really like the money, so we do a lot of overtime. My child's grown and moved on, and I see people with families, so I'll take it so that they don't have to. There are some of us that don't mind it, but even not minding it, I can't do what I did last year. I can't emotionally, physically, and mentally work that many hours. It's probably not humanly possible for anyone to do that. So I would like to cut back. There are people there that don't want overtime. We have staff members that don't want to work any overtime, but we do have forced overtime. So I would say there's a wide range. There's a few people that end up doing a lot of it. There's some middle of the road people, and there are people that don't want it but get forced to do it. So they're not happy because they don't want to be doing it. I would be fine with cutting back. That's 60 hours a week, 50 to 60 hours a week in a 911 center is a lot of stress. It puts a lot on your families as well. So I would say that people, in 23 years, Metro has been a roller coaster. There's too much overtime. Now they're mad because there's not any overtime, and it goes in ups and downs. I would say we've been at too much overtime for too long.
Yeah.
It is starting to wear on people. I would say that sick time has probably gone up. It's a bigger picture than just the overtime, because not being able to take vacation is part of that as well. You're working more than you want, and you can't take the time off that you want. So
Sure.
it's complicated, I guess.
How are, you know, it totally makes sense. How are we doing as an agency with handling the kind of the mental health ramifications? And I mean, 60 hours in a PSAP it's a lot for someone's mind. And the name's escaping me. What's the 911 or the hotline you can call if you're an employee and you have a EAP? Do we have an EAP?
We do have
for-
EAP. We have several. We have
Okay.
through Family Services, and there's an online one. I think there's 3 different ones that we have. I can't speak to other people, but that would also mean you'd have to have time to go to EAP. And when you're working 60 hours a week, that doesn't allow a lot of time.
Yeah.
But, we do have resources available. I think that things are going to start hopefully turning around so that we can focus more on mental health, because that is a huge issue.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a lot to ask of people to give up time with their family and then deal with everyone else's problems.
I just think promotion of that EAP internally amongst the employees, Mike, if we can just make sure that they're well versed in that resource and they know it's available, I think it's just really important.
We do also have peer-to-peer support through PD, which I've used several times, and we're very thankful for the PD for that, because it is important, especially when you have officer-involved shootings and things like that most people don't have to deal with. So, and for us, as a 911 operator, it's different than anybody else. The police, they go to one call, they see it all the way through, they know what the resolution is. For us, you move on to the next thing. You take an abandoned vehicle, and then you take somebody in cardiac arrest. Then you take somebody having a baby, then you take somebody fighting with their kid. It never stops.
Yeah.
It's just a constant one after another. And I would say that the sooner we can get fully staffed so that people aren't trying to do 10 things at once and maybe you can only do 5, that would be nice.
Sure. I should have done this at the beginning, but for those who maybe don't know you, can you introduce yourself and your role at Metro?
Yeah, I'm Lenora Giles. I'm currently the union president for Metro, and I've been there 23 years.
Thank you.
I'm old and I am crazy, but I don't blame Metro.
Sorry to pull you out of the audience. So you got any questions for Lenora while we have her there on that topic?
Just thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks,
Thank you
Lenora.
for asking.
Yep.
All right, any more questions about the December financials?
Not hearing any? All right.
I would request a motion to approve them if you would be so kind.
Do we need to approve them as pending, or do we wait till they're audited?
I would approve them as pending auditor review.
That would be my motion.
All right, motion by Karski and seconded by Cole to approve the financials pending auditor review. Discussion there? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that one passes. Item 8 is the approval of the revised 2022 budget amendment. There's something in your packet for that. Anna?
Yeah, so if you recall, we did a budget amendment, or you approved a budget amendment in December, After additional review with Motorola, they revised the amount of equipment that had been delivered to Metro, and it was substantially more. And so originally, they told us they had delivered $454,000 approximately dollars of equipment out of the radio system, hence the capital outlay amendment of $500,000. After we went through and requested documentation, they revised the number to $663,000, which is the CIP that you saw on December 31st. So with that in mind, I need to request an additional budget amendment to increase capital outlay by $175,000, and that will be through increased revenue of contribution of revenue of the same amount.
All right.
Question, so we're not spending anymore, we're just spending it earlier, is what you're saying? It's the proper amount, it's just the timing?
Yes, a little bit of both, actually. We did not cut a check for that amount. Under accounting standards, because those assets were sitting in Metro proper, even though they're not in service, because we had received them, because they're starting to ship them, because they probably want to get them out of their warehouse, we have to recognize the fact that we are in possession of this amount of assets. And that's why when we requested originally what the value of those assets were, we were told $454,000. And we trusted that because we're looking at pallets full of equipment. When I requested documentation to present to the auditors, they changed their mind and decided it was actually $663,000. So we have not cut a check to them yet as of December 31st. But we have to recognize the fact that that's our accounts payable that Commissioner Benninga noticed, because since we're in receipt of those under accounting standards, we have to book them.
So what we ordered was delivered at the right contract price though, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Matt Tooley and Scott McMahon worked very hard on negotiating those contracts with Motorola, and as you recall, we got a very good deal. And they are held to that scope of work that we signed, so that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions on that? If not, we'd take a motion on approving that budget amendment.
Move approval.
Second, Cole.
All right, motion by Sale, seconded by Cole to approve item 8 there. Any discussion? All right, let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. We'll move to item 9, our draft financial statements, year-to-date, February 28, 2023.
All right, so you have before you a similar format, but for the current year-to-date through the end of February. We'll start with a balance sheet. Our cash is sitting pretty well. It's a little less than that last year, and that's reflective of the due from local governments. And so as those funds come in, and we're starting to see those funds flow in now, then our cash will write itself out, so to speak. And you can see the comparison from last year. Last year at this time, we didn't have any due from local government, but we purchased some more assets early this year. And those asset purchases are reflected in the due from local government, $98,000. And you'll see that as we have continued meetings throughout the year, you'll see the due from, and then, because it's not in our cash, but as the cash is advanced to us from the various individuals or organizations who are helping us, you'll see it move from due from local or state government up to cash.
Okay.
And then you see the CIP is now increased to $701,000. So that's reflective of some more capital assets, both Motorola equipment that's been delivered, and then we also paid 50% down on our NICE recorder upgrade. So that's the additional there.
So we've received that Motorola equipment we have somewhere?
It's literally sitting in our public safety building, wrapped, secured, locked,
Okay.
because there's really nowhere to store it yet at the new PSAP.
Okay.
And I continue to monitor insurance and make sure our property insurance, our contents, is increased as we receive items to make sure we're covered in case of a catastrophic event.
Okay.
I'll move on, if that's okay with you, to the prior year actual comparison. And you'll notice that for revenue, there's not a lot of activity, and that's because we don't have any surcharge revenue in the current year, because it's 45 days behind. So what we received in January and February was for the year 2022. March will be the first month that you'll see receipts that are for the current year. So what you see here are city-county share and some services revenue. And the other revenue, a great deal of that is the contribution of revenue that we're recognizing as we do this recording of assets that are coming in and recognizing that they're going to be reimbursed. Here's payroll this year compared to last year. You can see that payroll has increased. And operations, pretty straightforward again. However, you'll see under supplies a significant increase. That's reflective of computers that were purchased for the new PSAP. And those items then are recorded under supplies, but the contribution of revenue up above offsets that. And if we move on to budget versus actual, just for this year, you can see on the right your the calendar year budget, so it's the entire year, and this is the budget you approved last year. And then the original year-to-date budget is reflective of the 2 months ending February. And again, there's no surcharge revenue yet, and that's as expected because they run 2 months behind. Subscribers report the January to the state in February, and the February reconciles that and cuts the check to us in March. So that's how that works. And there again, you see that contribution of revenue of $180,000, and you're going to see that number go up until we're reimbursed, and then that number will reflect that activity. And Mayor, here's your information you were looking for year-to-date with salaries and overtime. So you can see overtime is double of what we would normally budget for.
All right. Okay. But salaries are down, so it's kind of a wash, but it's more the burnout factor is I think the reason we watch that, so,
Exactly.
yeah, okay.
And then I'll just jump down below. If you look at computer hardware, $76,000. Again, that's reflective of having purchased $75,000 worth of computers, prepared to install them in the new center when we're able to get in.
All right, any questions on the budget, the 2023 budget, and where we're at year-to-date? All right. Do we need to make a motion to accept this?
Please.
Okay. Motion to accept the draft financials pending auditor review year-to-date, February 28, please.
So move, Cole.
Second.
All right, motion by Cole, seconded by Benega. Discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Quick question. That computer line, I'm not disputing the budget, but what's controls are there for purchasing all this computer equipment? Who approves it? What kind of processes are in place?
Sure. So on purchases like this, there would be a purchase order. Matt Tooley, our technology coordinator, works with the director reviewing quotes. And we've also met with Scott Rust and other individuals at the city regarding the move to the new facility because there's some pretty extensive costs. I mean, we're gonna be looking at $2.4 million total between State 911 Coordination Board reimbursement and the support between the city and the county. So it's a significant amount of assets between chairs, desks, tables, computers, monitors, all of that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
All right. One thing, and this is kind of my bad, when we approved the agenda, probably should have asked for an other business agenda item, because before we get into exec session, I just want to bring up, I alluded to it, the meeting schedule. So if you look at our schedule at the bottom, so we have a meeting in a month, less than a month, on April 26th. And then we're not scheduled to meet again until August 16. And I feel everything we have going on, director change, we're moving into a $11 million center, in the next few months. Waiting until August for another meeting, 4 months, is probably not prudent. I think there's, especially as Mike continues to dig in, I think getting reports on things is going to be important. So I'd like for us to put at least one more meeting on the calendar during the summer sometime. But wanted to kind of get the thoughts of the board on that. Not looking for more to put on our schedules, but I think it's important.
If I may, Mayor, I would agree that we probably all should be understanding and flexible that a meeting in May or June or July, or maybe 2 out of those 3 is probably going to be needed, especially if we're going to be conducting, doing a search for a new director and interviews and approving. And I mean, I guess I want to stay away from just saying on May 28th, we're going to have a meeting. I'd rather say as necessary that we have
Sure.
and understand that process is going to occur.
We can call special meetings as needed.
Correct.
Okay. Other thoughts on that? Okay. Got the thumbs up from Counselor Sale, and okay. Well, we'll leave the schedule as is then, but know that, watch your inbox, because we probably will have to call a special meeting or 2 or over the next several months. So with that, I need a motion then to put us in an exec session for the purposes of and is authorized by SDCL 1-25-2, 1, 3, and 4, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Karski and seconded by Sale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll head into exec session with the board, and I'd like the interim director to join us for that, if you could also. Okay. And where would we go for that in this new setup? In the meeting room next door here? Okay.